So, well, speaking of housing, part of President Obama's speech today focused on using immigration reform to boost housing prices. Sure to be a controversial concept, without question. The White House says that number shows that nearly 40% of first-time homebuyers from 2000 to 2010 were immigrants. So let's talk about how immigration reform could expand the market. Doug Holtz-Eakin is former CBO Director. Great to have you back on the show. First of all,
thank you.
You know, that number was from the White House. Does that make sense to you that 40% of new home buyers are immigrants? I mean, they're not they're not new formation of families. They're not single people who just, got out of college and are looking to make 40. That number feels high to me.
The 40% is actually, if you look back about a decade and you look at the contribution of immigration to new home buying, you get about 40% of those households coming out of the immigrant flow. So that number's in the right ballpark. I don't think anyone would overstate its precision. And certainly we've done work that suggests that if you have a substantial immigration reform that emphasizes new flows and emphasizes skills, you're going to generate a lot of new households that will need houses. So I think the fundamental argument is pretty sound, and it's something that the housing market is certainly watching.
But are immigrants more likely to buy than rent?
No. What you really have is the case that most immigrants are going to come at a point in their life when they are going to build a little bit of capital and then get into buying a house. So most purchase rates really have to do more with your income and your age than anything else, and immigrants fit right into that profile.
Is it trickier to assess the credit of somebody who hasn't been in the country as long and doesn't have as long of a track record on paper?
That depends on the quality of the immigration reform, and obviously we get a high-quality reform. You're going to have clear documentation of the wherewithal of individuals to immigrate to the United States. You're going to have documentation of their employment, and I think it's going to be no more difficult than the usual credit check.
What's the impact? I mean, what kind of magnitude could immigrants have on the housing situation in general? Because a lot of people come out and they try and make the argument of how immigration would boost the economy and make it a numbers rather than emotional argument. What scale are we talking about?
Well, think about it this way. The president chose to make his remarks in Phoenix, and Phoenix has recovered much more quickly than, say, a Las Vegas housing market, in part because it has a well-diversified economic base, which has shown a lot more employment and income growth. That's at the heart of housing market recovery. Immigration would augment that. It would give us more workers. More workers gives you greater capacity to produce output, gives you higher skilled workers and some productivity boost. That leads to more income. Those are the fundamentals of a solid economic recovery. We've done arithmetic that suggests you could get almost a percentage point faster growth out of a substantial immigration reform. Percentage points a lot of income in the United States. That's $160 billion. You funnel that into the housing market, you'll have a big impact.
I know, but the knock on that is always that the immigrants that we're actually going to get are not terribly skilled, so those numbers are overstated.
Well, I mean, what people usually say is, I'm just going to ignore the law that was passed and pretend that it's not what's going to actually happen. Well, the reason we pass laws is to make sure that we get better outcomes. And so I'm at least hopeful that we will continue this process, get a high-quality immigration reform.
What does that have to do? It's not the emotional argument. I mean, what does that have to do with how skilled the actual immigrants that we're going to get are going to be?
If you look at the kinds of skills the market rewards, you get two very interesting results. Number one, everyone knows high-skilled workers get a premium. That's why college education remains important. But low-skilled immigrants have proven to be a complement to American domestic-born workers, so that raises the wages of the existing population. This is something where the benefits are to the economy. They aren't necessarily attached to the individual.
Interesting. All right, Doug, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.